Okay, so get ready to dive deep, really deep into Genesis chapter 6. I mean, we're talking about Noah's Ark, right? But trust me, this isn't the children's book version. We're going way deeper, using the study guide we found from My Christian Space
Yeah.
to see if we can uncover like a new way of understanding God, humanity, and, those big decisions we make in life.
Mm.
The ones that really matter, you know what I mean?
It's amazing how this chapter takes like a really well-known story
Mm-hmm.
and then uses it to like grapple with these huge questions, right?
Yeah.
Like free will, temptation,
Yeah.
even at like, what does it even mean to sin?
Yeah, from the very beginning, it's like, hold on, what's going on here? You've got this whole sons of God marrying daughters of men thing. It's like straight out of Greek mythology or something.
All right. Right. It's really easy to go down that like kind of fantastical route.
Yeah.
But the source, it actually suggests a different way to look at it. It's not about like, literal angels or anything. It's talking about this division within humanity itself.
Mm.
So think like descendants of Seth, the ones who stayed true to God,
Mm.
versus the descendants of Cain who kind of went their own way.
Okay.
It's like the ultimate family feud, but with like eternal stakes.
Whoa, yeah. So not a love story between like different beings, but more about, I guess, humans making choices that have some really, really big consequences.
That's
Because
it.
God, he creates this like ideal with Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
right? And here it's like their descendants are like, no, we're good. We'll make our own rules.
And that's where it gets really, really interesting because
Yeah.
it's not even just about marriage, is it? It's
Yeah.
about this choice between like what feels good right now versus what's going to, help us grow spiritually. That pull, I mean, that's something we probably all deal with today, right?
100%. And then, like, just a few verses later, Genesis throws in another curveball. It says, God set the human lifespan at 120 years. Now, I mean, I wouldn't say no to that, but compared to those crazy long lifespans we were seeing earlier in Genesis, like, God hit fast forward on human history or something.
It makes you wonder why, right? The source we're looking at, it suggests that maybe it was actually an act of mercy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like maybe by making our time on earth shorter, God was actually trying to limit the amount of time we'd spend, struggling with the consequences of sin, giving us more of a chance to get back on track before it's too late.
I've never thought about it like that. It makes you think about how God's actions might be motivated by love even when they seem, I don't know, a little harsh.
Exactly. And this kind of sets the stage for the next big twist. The Nephilim show up.
Okay, here we go. This is the part everyone remembers, even if they don't remember the name. Giant, kind of scary figures. And the word Nephilim itself, it actually comes from the Hebrew Nepha, which means fallen ones.
Fallen.
Gives you chills, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of different interpretations floating around about
Right.
like who or what the Nephilim were. You've got your fallen angels, maybe even aliens. Those are some popular ones.
Yeah.
But the source we're looking at focuses on them being humans, but humans that are so far gone from God,
Mm-hmm.
so deep in this like darkness that it actually like warped their very being. Yeah.
So we're not just talking about like really tall people then.
No, not at all. The text, it makes it pretty clear that these weren't just big people. They represented something like really unsettling, almost like a chilling glimpse into what happens when humanity just totally goes off the rails spiritually. Imagine like a whole generation so twisted by their choices
Yeah.
that they become almost unrecognizable as human. Makes you think about, the consequences, the
Yeah.
potential consequences of sin when it's just left unchecked.
Yeah, that's definitely not a bedtime story.
Yeah.
And it all leads up to this really poignant moment in Genesis chapter 6, verse 6. It says, "And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart."
Wow. And it's right there, right? That's where we see that God isn't just this like distant, unfeeling being. This is a creator who is deeply, truly affected by the state of his creation. Try to imagine, if you can, like a parent watching their child
Mm-hmm.
make choices that lead them down a dark and destructive path.
The pain, the disappointment, it's powerful stuff. You can almost like feel the weight of those emotions right there in the text.
And it's this mix of love and sorrow, right, that leads God to make let's face it, a pretty drastic decision.
You're talking about the flood.
Yeah, the flood. But even in the face of, judgment,
Mm-hmm.
there's still this glimmer of hope. Because in the middle of all this chaos, we're introduced to this man who stands apart.
And that's Noah, right? Talk about a guy who seems to be on a totally different wavelength than everyone else. I mean, the world is literally spiraling into wickedness, and he's holding on to his faith.
The text, it describes Noah as, and this is interesting, righteous and perfect in his generations. But it's that phrase, perfect in his generations. That, I think, really stands out. Yeah. Because the actual Hebrew word they use there, tamim, it suggests a deeper meaning. Something more than just, like, following the rules.
Okay.
It implies, like, this wholeness, this complete reliance on God that guided every single thing Noah did. He was living in a way that honored God.
Yeah.
In a world where that was incredibly rare.
So it's not just about, like, checking off boxes on a good person list, right? It's about really aligning your entire life with God's will.
That's it.
And in the middle of all this unfolding drama, God gives Noah a very specific, very detailed set of instructions. Instructions to build an ark, yeah. But not just any ark.
Right.
God lays out the dimensions, the materials to use, everything. He even tells Noah exactly how many decks it needs and how many of each animal to bring on board.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Right. It's like I can almost imagine Noah being like, okay, hold on a second. You want me to build what?
Oh, yeah.
Out of what kind of wood? And I need how many animals?
It's almost comical, right?
Okay.
When you think about, like, the sheer scale of it. But on a more serious note, I think all those specific instructions, they were there for a reason.
Right.
They were showing Noah that, hey, this isn't something I'm taking lightly. This isn't just God saying, oh, hey, Noah, by the way, it might rain next week, so maybe build a boat just in case. This was a carefully, orchestrated plan with a clear goal.
It makes you realize how seriously God took and takes this idea of redemption, giving humanity another chance, even when we mess up big time.
It really does.
And let's be real for a second, even with detailed instructions, building an ark big enough to hold Noah's family, and 2 of every animal, we're talking about some serious project management skills, right?
Absolutely. It makes you appreciate the faith Noah must have had to take on something that enormous.
For sure. And that's actually where we're going to have to leave things for today. We've got the righteous guy, the impending doom, and the construction project of the millennium underway. So when we come back, we'll see what happens when those ark doors swing shut and the floodwaters rise.
It's easy to get caught up in the bigness of it all, 40 days and nights of rain, the whole world underwater. But there's this one detail in the source that really stuck with me. It's how Genesis talks about God closing the ark door. It's so matter of fact, like the period at the end of a sentence.
Yeah, I mean, after all the warnings, all the preparations, there's this feeling of finality to it.
Exactly. It wasn't like an impulsive thing. It was this moment of huge consequence, like closing the book on a whole chapter of human history.
And what an era to end, right? I mean, Genesis doesn't hold back at all. There's violence, wickedness, everywhere you look. Makes you wonder what those last few days outside the ark must have been like for Noah and his family. I mean,
it must have been intense, being surrounded by people who just don't get it, people who made a different choice. There must have been this incredible mix of sadness for everything lost and then thankfulness that they had the ark.
It's like that saying, obeying God isn't always easy, but it's always right. Have you ever had to make a really tough choice where you had to trust that things would work out, even though it felt scary or uncertain?
It reminds me of this one time, but yeah, going back to Noah, can you imagine having that much faith?
Yeah.
To believe that wooden structure was the only safe place in the entire world.
And not just for him, right, but for his entire family.
It's incredible.
Talk about a test of faith. And then once the floodwaters recede, it's like God hit the reset button on the entire world, everything fresh, clean. It's almost like creation gets a do-over.
It's a powerful picture of renewal, for sure. But I think it's important to remember that it wasn't just about erasing the past, right?
Right.
The flood, it's this turning point in God's relationship with humanity. It's about this new covenant, a fresh start.
And that's where we get the rainbow, right?
Right. That rainbow. The ultimate symbol of God's promise to never flood the world again.
It's like God put this giant, colorful sticky note on the clouds. Like, don't worry, I'm not giving up on you.
It's a message that still resonates today. It's about hope, second chances.
Yeah.
And just how faithful God is.
It's definitely a message I think we all need to hear sometimes. Especially when things feel, overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
But let's go back to Noah for a second. I mean, can you imagine stepping out of that ark onto this fresh, totally new earth?
That must have been something else.
What a moment.
You could almost feel how huge it was, the relief, the wonder, but also the weight of the responsibility.
Yeah.
Because now it's not just about rebuilding their lives, it's about rebuilding all of humanity.
Talk about pressure.
Right. And that's where God's covenant with Noah is so important. It's not just about preventing another flood. It's about a whole new way of relating to God.
It's like God saying, okay, let's try this again.
Exactly. And that promise, that commitment, it still matters today. It's a reminder that even when we mess up, even when our choices have, serious consequences, God's love is still there. He always offers us fresh starts, new beginnings.
It's encouraging, to say the least,
For sure.
knowing that no matter what we're facing, there's always hope.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's always hope. But I think we also have to remember that the story of Noah isn't all, rainbows and butterflies. It also shows us just how serious sin is and that our choices really do matter.
They do. The flood's a powerful reminder that our actions have consequences. It makes you think about the choices we make every single day and what kind of impact they have. Not just on us, but on the people around us.
It really is a sobering thought, but it's also a call to action, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Because if we learn anything from Noah, it's that. We have this responsibility to reflect God's love in everything we do, to be like beacons of hope in a world that often feels pretty dark.
It's like the world needs its Noahs now more than ever,
100%.
People who are willing to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
Exactly. We're called to be different, to make a difference, just like Noah. And the source, it makes a good point about this. It's not always about these huge, dramatic gestures, It's about the everyday stuff, those small acts of kindness, of courage, the kind of things that might seem small, but can have this ripple effect.
So you're saying we don't all have to go build arcs to make a difference?
Not at all. It starts with the people around us, our families, our communities, our coworkers, speaking up for what's true, lending a hand, showing compassion when it's hard. Those things matter way more than we realize.
It's pretty amazing to think about that even the small things, those little acts of faith and kindness, can make a real difference in the world.
I think so too. It's like that quote from Mother Teresa, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And those small things, over time, they can really change the world around us.
They really can. Well, as we're wrapping up this deep dive into Genesis chapter 6, I keep coming back to that image of the rainbow, this symbol of hope, this reminder that even after the worst storms, there's always the promise of a new beginning.
It's a beautiful image. It makes you realize that. If God was willing to offer that kind of grace to a world that, let's face it, seemed pretty far gone, imagine the possibilities he has for us today.
Wow, yeah. It really puts things into perspective. Knowing that we follow a God who is always ready to forgive, to redeem, to make things new. So as you go about your week, I hope you remember the story of Noah, not just as some old story, but as a call to action, an invitation to be a light in your world.
I love that.
To be that beacon of hope and righteousness in your own little corner of the world.
Beautifully said. May we all strive to be a little more like Noah each day, walking with God, living with purpose, and showing grace and love to everyone around us, even when things get tough.
Amen to that. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep driving deeper into those big questions, the ones that really matter. We'll be here to explore them right alongside you.